We spent a lot of time planning for this studio. We wanted it to be a combination of classroom teaching as well as on-site experiences, experiencing the city by physically walking through it. Right? The title of the studio was In Between Katong. Is more to be felt than to be thought about.
I think Katong is a very special place. It's a very historic place, and now it's become something like a place that a lot of young people all go to because it's very happening. There's a lot of cafes, and it's not just like modern, but you have the shop houses there. So it makes it a very special visual experience.
Last year, we had an opportunity, right? The Singapore's Urban Redevelopment Authority has announced that they will study the historic corridors. And among the historic corridors are the historic East corridors. And we thought that it is an opportunity to work with URA, the Urban Redevelopment Authority, for our students to engage on the study of the historic East corridor. And hence, we have this particular studio.
I think there are many ways of teaching urban design. It can be taught through a series of classroom map studies. But we figure that the best way to introduce urban design to students is by less classroom teaching, but more of walking through the city itself and experiencing it from that point of view. So I think that's fundamentally the difference. One of the difference. Another difference that is the way that we record our findings on site. Not so much through conventional architectural representations, but through less utilized mediums like developing a film clip, establishing postcards, going back many times to befriend the residents, the inhabitants of Katong, and in the process feel the ground a bit more.
It's completely changed now, you know. Sometimes you see the road so quiet, just people just walk past, go to church, or go and buy some fast food, and then hurriedly go home already.
So the story that the auntie told us about the past and how Katong changed and evolved with the time is also, I think it's quite important for us to understand this process and how the whole process changed and evolved. That was how we also want to kind of find our direction in the project.
And today is a Monday weekend, Sunday also like that, quiet, now, you know, there's no life.
Japan.
So our Tokyo trip was done during recess week, and it was an opportunity to study a new city, right? And it was the first time we had in ASD, and it was quite special to travel a new city, not just on holiday, but with like architects and other design students, because everyone has like the similar interest and passion in like buildings and design, and so we would point like things out to each other, which made it a very, very, very fun trip.
Hi, we're now in Shibuya, next to National Park. We are now walking to Cat Street, which I think is very interesting.
They are like about 8-story high, but look out for the 2 to 3-story pop-ups. Yes. They are very much like suddenly you walk and then whoa, somebody is in my face, and I want to go and check it out.
Andrew is giving lecture on the Japan Street in Tokyo. So it's a very amazing feeling, like having lecture in another nation and on the street. The architect that bring us through his project at Bonus Track. Yeah, so because he knows his project the best, and we also get the opportunity to see him working in the office. So we know how is it working in Japan, like as an architect, and how they design is different from Singaporeans.
Actually, the Aki film was quite interesting, right? Because it was above the curry house.
Yeah. So we also had a curry lunch there. Yeah, a lot of people just don't want to go somewhere else, but I think it's a very special place. You imagine the first floor is rent out on a specific date for a curry house. Then we were just nicely catch that day. Yeah, so you eat that curry there. It's very nice.
Another highlight of the trip was that we got to meet Sukamoto, Prof. Sukamoto, who is a author of Made in Tokyo, which is one of the reference books for our studio. And some of us had the chance to present our midterm work to him. So my group was one of those. I think the trip with Sukamoto was very, very interesting because obviously coming from a different background, an entirely different country, he has a very different approach to maybe how we see design in Singapore.
Professor Tsukamoto was my mentor, so I studied with him between 1999 and 2001 when I was studying at Tokyo Institute of Technology. Of course, that was how many years? 20 over years ago. It's a privilege to study with him, and something I didn't expect that 20 years later I would be able to bring my students to actually have the projects being reviewed by him.
I think what this studio had at the beginning was quite rich, right? There were quite a lot of guest lectures, there were a lot of site visits, and I think the challenge was to consolidate all this information and put it into an idea, because you have to contend with what Katong means to you as a designer and what Katong means to let's say the residents or shop owner or a tourist, and to consolidate all this and present an idea. I think that was the challenge, right? And I think to have this studio more heavy on drawings is to hone that skill, right? Because when you sketch, you iterate quickly, and when you iterate quickly, you speed up the thinking process also.
It's the elevated park that straddles across the MRT station.
As you draw, you frame your thought process, right? It's procedural. You have to start somewhere and you have to end somewhere, and in doing so, you follow a process, and in that process you craft a storyline and you craft a story, and that becomes your design intent.
If you're a book nerd for Aki, it was really, really wonderful. I think this time around, previous studios, we never really reference books that heavily or intensely. I think there was a good variety with graphic styles, placemaking and stuff like that. I feel these references are quite important because again, we are storytellers, right? As architects, we don't just design, we tell stories. We tell stories of the unrepresented as well. So how do you weave that narrative into your project also? Very important.
Hello, Katong. This is my story about learning, feeling, and finding the beat of Katong. I'm not an Eastie, and like many others, what I thought of Katong was the lovely Peranakan houses, the busy and vibrant streets, lots and lots of great food around to eat. Take a walk down Joo Chiat, and you'll find old stores next to new ones, a reflection of the changing times. But step to the fringes of Katong and slow down. The little streets, the quiet streets. Maybe as an outsider, you chance upon the dormant giants, the former jewels of Katong. What do you make for Katong? For me, it's about bringing together the old, the new, the past, the future, all into the present, the now.
Nature to this space where this is a space where like this person is for live performances, so it can be busking, it can be like the DJ.
I think that this studio is really successful by my own measure. I think it's really successful. The students have really responded well to the themes and the agenda of the studio brief. It's always nice to see how they grow from this, and the students should really take this studio as an accomplishment towards their future endeavours. As far as the studio is concerned, I think we can really build upon this studio, and it becomes this yearly thing where we really explore, understand different sort of areas within Singapore itself, and then sort of like counter study with a case study overseas.
Working on an architectural project, you don't have to work alone. It's possible to work with people, and sometimes you can get great outputs out of it. You have each other's back, you're always talking, bantering back and forth, throwing in ideas and saying, okay, this works, this doesn't, okay, if this doesn't, what else works? I think I'm pretty happy with my project. I liked how it turned out, I liked how nicely integrated within Katong, which is the main theme, in between Katong.
For me, what I found to be the biggest difference going from Term 4 and Term 5 into this term is the brief. So previously in our studios, the brief, there's always been a given program and a given agenda. But I think with Andrew's studio, we really had the freedom to choose what we want to do, where we want to do. But that meant you had to be really, really certain about why you want to do it and how you do it. And I think that sort of nurtured the logical thinking process of as we go through a project, why we make certain moves and how does this benefit the overall site that we've chosen.
I think the last point I want to make is that it's unapologetic that the studio is all about beginning with the larger picture, the city in mind, as opposed to zooming in into a circumscribed site. When we talk about city, it's oftentimes about relationships. When I was an Archi student myself, Louis Kahn have a famous saying, a city is like a young boy or younger in this case, walking through it, and when she grows up, she knows exactly what she wants. She or he knows what he wants to be. A city is necessarily a land of opportunity, and we should not reduce solution, we should encourage possibility. And this is all, this is what the studio is all about, creating more possibilities.